Exquisite presidential leadership. Mr. President, thank you for getting us over the finish line.
House Speaker Paul Ryan was effusive in praising the dear leader, Donald Trump, after Republicans rammed their tax cuts for corporations and the 1% through Congress. Ryan even coined a phrase that may come back to haunt him, exquisite leadership. But one of the points in Michael Wolff's Fire and Fury is that Donald Trump doesn't really know Republican orthodoxy. That seems to be how he stumbled into agreeing, at least in principle, to comprehensive immigration reform today when he met with a bipartisan group of lawmakers.
President, comprehensive means comprehensive.
No, we're not talking about comprehensive. Now we're talking about.
No, we are talking about comprehensive.
If you want to go there, it's okay, because you're not that far away.
President,
when this group comes back, hopefully with an agreement, this group and others from the Senate, from the House, comes back with an agreement, I'm signing it. I think a lot of people would like to see that. But I think we have to do DACA first.
Mr. President, you need to be clear, though. I think what Senator Feinstein's asking here, when we talk about just DACA, we don't want to be back here 2 years later.
I think that's what she's saying.
I think she's saying something different.
I think what we're all saying is we'll do DACA, and we can certainly start comprehensive immigration reform the following afternoon, okay? We'll take an hour off, and then we'll start.
Republicans sat around that table and watched their president almost give away the entire store for nothing. MSNBC political analyst Jason Johnson is the politics editor at The Root and a professor at Morgan State University. And Rick Wilson is a Republican strategist and media consultant. And Rick, the entire premise of the Trump campaign was Mexico is sending its worst. We're going to end immigration and build a wall. How did he suddenly go from that to being Marco Rubio? What is happening?
I think Donald Trump got it. Gang of 8 tattoo tonight, and the members only jacket for Rhino cuck immigration squishes, because this is a guy who literally sat there today and shredded the entire Bannon-Steve Miller agenda on building the wall and throwing out all the brown people. It was a clown show.
But who's in charge of telling Ann Coulter? I nominate you, Rick. You're in charge of telling Ann Coulter. You have to tell her. Okay, so Jason, is this some Democrats? In my Twitter feed, there's some anger that Democrats aren't really putting their foot down and saying, we ain't voting for a wall, period, end of story. We don't care what you say. Should Democrats be planting their flag there?
They don't even have to put the flag down yet, Joy, because it's clear, and this is from the book, and everyone who's ever talked about this president, he agrees with whatever the last idea is of the person who left the room. That's why he was ping-ponging back and forth. I like this kind of immigration. I hate this kind of immigration. I don't like these kind of people. I like these kind of people. So the Democrats don't have to take a strong position now because they don't know what position Trump is going to have in 3 weeks. That's part of the problem. So there's no reason to plant a flag.
Rick, I'm going to let you listen to Sarah Huckabee Sanders, whose job frequently is to try to interpret Trump for regular people. Here she is trying to explain that he really does know what clean DACA bill means. He meant something completely different than what clean DACA bill sounds like. Take a listen.
Only if you look at what the president's definition of a clean DACA bill is, and within that bill, he thinks that you have to include not just fixing DACA, but closing the loopholes and making sure we have a solution on that front, so we don't create a problem and find ourselves right back where we started in 1, 2, 3 years later.
Help me, Rick. What did that mean?
You know, Sarah Sanders is just the White House mistress of word vomit, and every day something new just pops out. And look, I don't blame her. It's like Donald Trump speaks some sort of forgotten language like Hittite or Syrian and just rambles on, and she just tries to translate as best she can. But this is a White House led by a man who does not have a lot of, shall we say, intellectual heft when it comes to understanding complex items of the policy agenda. You know, he's overcome by basically inanimate objects every day. And so you end up with a situation where he says things in this meeting that the rest of the Republicans are in the room saying, dear God, what are we doing here? Because, you know, it's like they stumble occasionally on a policy win like the tax bill, and then they come to something like this, and Trump is confused about what his own base is going to do about this. A lot of his base was motivated and informed by this sense that he was going to build a wall and throw out all the brown people.
Yeah.
And obviously what he's saying today is, we're going to have a policy based on love. We're going to do DACA. Then we're going to come back an hour later and do comprehensive immigration reform. I mean, like I said, that Gang of 8 tramp stamp tattoo he's getting is going to look awesome.
He's Jeb Bush. I mean, listen, back in June of 2016, we pulled this, January of 2016, January 30, as a matter of fact, Donald Trump told the New York Times editorial board the following about the wall. He said, quote, you know, if it gets a little boring at his rallies, if I see people starting to sort of maybe thinking about leaving, I can sort of tell the audience, I will just say, we'll build the wall, and they go nuts. Isn't it just the case that Donald Trump used the wall and all of this sort of Brexiteer talk about immigration just to trick his base into being for him? Because he doesn't even know what any of this means.
Yeah, Joy, he doesn't know what any of this means. He doesn't know how to build it. He's basically been, like, punked multiple times by Pena Nieto of Mexico. He's like, I'm not building your wall. I'm not giving you any money. Vicente Fox said, I'm not building the wall. So he doesn't even know how this thing can get made. And he's always been back and forth on these issues. Look, I mean, back in 2012, remember, he said Mitt Romney was crazy for telling people that they had to self-deport. And he said that to Newsmax. But I think the important thing is this. As much as Donald Trump seems to flip-flop back and forth and can't figure out what he wants to order for lunch when it comes to immigration, this is the same administration that's now trying to kick out 200,000 El Salvadorans when they aren't doing that to Kosovo refugees who we accepted in 1999. So the underlying tendency is still kicking out people of color, making it difficult for people of color to stay in this country, while at the same time feigning ignorance.
And at the same time, Rick, then why doesn't his base react when he changes his mind?
Oh, I think we're going to see the comment section of the now Steve Bannon-free Breitbart tomorrow losing their minds on this. And I think a lot of these folks that really relied on Donald Trump's immigration message that he really activated in an effort to position himself as the guy who was going to return their jobs from the sly Mexicans and the wily Chinese. You know, these evil brown people and people of color from overseas.
He made it
out. I think he's going to have some surprised supporters when they start reading these.